Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Yeah, hit record. Come on, Lexi, you know you're just going to edit this out anyways.
My favorite part about you doing that to me is that I've realized I'm the only one you do it to when I go back on other episodes that he records with other people. If I'm not present, Steven will super professionally, like, hi guys, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code. This is what the episode is. But if it's Chirstina, he jumps in with something crazy.
That's because he loves and respects you.
I appreciate it, right? And deep down, I know it's a good thing. Oh, I'm out of water. That's a bad thing. Okay, perfect. Hi guys. Welcome back to another chaotic episode. So today I'm super excited. It is myself and Coach Steven. And then we also have a good friend of the Pro Physique family. I feel like he's even rocking his Pro Physique. Well, that was
absolutely 2000. What was this? 2016, I think. 17.
Back in the day, that's when I first joined the team. Was 2016, going into the Arnold of 17. Colin DeWaay. I forgot to say your name that whole time. But everyone else doesn't know that you're Colin.
Absolutely.
And so, Colin, why don't you give us just kind of like a rundown of like who you are, what you're up to, things like that, and so that way they know who they're talking to.
Sure. Yeah. So as she said, my name's Colin DeWaay. I've been coaching for almost a decade now. I started in May of 2015, so 9.5 years or so, and pretty much all lifestyle coaching. I don't do any real like competitive or anything like that. And met Paul at Powerhouse back in 2015, 2016, became pretty close. We started traveling around together, and yeah, I ended up kind of getting tight with the Pro Physique crew. And I just really respect everything that the whole company stands for and what you guys do. And yeah, I'm just trying to do my own thing over here and help people master their mindset, get in better shape. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is self-worth, and I like that because it's something that I've been talking about a lot lately, in terms of not getting super wrapped up in body image and placing all your self-worth on it and everything. But yeah, I'm the guy who just wants to make a lifestyle out of things and not get too crazy about it.
Yeah, I love that. So with the mindset stuff, have you found have you always had an interest in that, or did you like see kind of more of a need for it in your coaching where it became like something you brought up more often?
I think it's something I've always had. It's something that's really resonated with me. I mean, kind of a backstory for myself. Me and my family moved to Florida in 2015. That's when I started my coaching business as well. I mean, we just kind of redid everything, right? We lived in Minnesota, and while we loved it there, we just didn't love the winters. Too cold. So we wanted to move somewhere warmer. I wanted to do what I loved for a living. So I stopped my career in print that I'd been doing for 15 years and just completely punted everything to take the chance to kind of start chasing dreams and live the life we want. And, if it wasn't for the mindset that I believe that I was kind of created because of the lifestyle change that we made here, and that's one thing maybe we'll get into, is how much carryover a fitness routine and gym life and everything can really carry over into everything else if you do things the right way. And I just don't think I ever been able to do what I did and be able to make that transition without the mental side of things. And it taught me a lot, going through tough times and persevering that and being patient and playing the long game and all that stuff that really carries over into everything we do here. So it's been something that ever since 2013, 2014, we made the decision, it became a pretty big part of my life. And I just see how valuable it is, how important it is to really make big lifestyle changes. I mean, I used to think, okay, if you want to change your body, it's like, 50% mental, 50% physical. I'm at the point now, I'm like, it's like 80-90% mental. Like you can do so much, wrong and get great shape if you get your mind right. But if you have the perfect plan and know exactly what to do, it's worthless if you can't follow it because of emotions and things like that. So
Yeah, I think that's become like a big thing too, where luckily I think more people are willing to work on that stuff, or they're like a little bit more willing to hear it, but there's still a lot of that, like, I always try to keep in mind how vulnerable of an area of people's lives that we get to be a part of. And so then if there's something where they're already frustrated because maybe they're not getting the results they're looking for, and then we have to be like, it's you, friend. Like, you're the one kind of in your way, and we need to like work this out. It's hard. It's like it's a tricky place, but I think I've noticed recently, and maybe it was kind of I feel like COVID kind of pushed it a little, where like a lot of people were at home, and then there started to be more of that like mental health push, and like people had a bit more time, and there was more people online where they could go and kind of like dip their feet wet in working on things. And so I feel like that's been a nice way to like, I've noticed more clients bringing stuff up like that where they're working on more. And I think that's been great to see.
I feel like
Yeah, I
it's
don't even know.
because
Go
during
ahead.
COVID, everybody was cooped up in the house and we were all going insane. And so if we didn't like look into therapy or some sort of mental health help and like start becoming more comfortable with that, we were just like, it was not going to be good. We didn't have anything, like you couldn't get out of the house. Like you couldn't go out and see friends. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do that. And just like forced people to be like, oh God, I guess I have to deal with my issues and myself.
They had to hang out with themselves, right? And being like, wait a minute, I don't want to hang out with me anymore. Yeah, well, one way or another, it nudged them that direction. And I know, Stephen, you too, like I've noticed with our podcast, and really over the last like year, probably, I feel like we've both been kind of focusing on that more in coaching and in conversations and stuff like that as well. So it's kind of been like a natural shift.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because the and I hate saying this, but with what I've seen in terms of like a lot of the competition prep, the coaching industry has gotten worse.
Yeah.
There was a while it was improving. There was a lot more evidence-based stuff. I think that there were a lot more things that really were beneficial for people's like physical health as well. And that really also put a positive in terms of, okay, when we're taking care of their physical health, well, the brain's part of the body, so that's going to have to be some semblance of that. And I feel like the past few years, the overall industry has really taken a downward turn. And so when that happens, people get messed up. Like you get messed up if you trusted me to have your best interest in mind, and I just ran you into the ground, wrecked you, and left you to figure it out. You are going to be in a bad spot if I just treat you like garbage or I talk down to you, or you know what I mean? Which is weird to me that like people pay us and then, or other coaches, they don't pay me, I guess, to do this. And then those other coaches will be disrespectful or rude or, you know, give them like really negative feedback stuff. And I'm like, but how does that make you a better athlete? Because anything that tears you down puts you down. It doesn't make you better. And so I think for me, that's been a lot of it. It's because I see people consistently struggling. And it's not like I don't know, Colin might be, but I'm not like coming out with this ground shaking, new stuff that's just like crazy. It's just trying to make a lot of the things that we know work for people in their lifestyles. And so most people have a generalized idea of, okay, okay, maybe I should move. Okay, maybe I should make some better choices with food. Maybe I should get a little bit more education on this. But the reality of, okay, well, how do I feel like I'm worth investing into myself? Or how do I see myself as worthy of having the physique I want or the health status that I want? Because a lot of us have all that baggage from, bad coaching, a lot of terrible media out there and stuff being thrown in people's faces for what it should be. And then, of course, a lifetime of whatever has been going on for them in addition to that.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to say is what I notice a lot of it comes from childhood, right? And a lot of that, unfortunately, not having much self-worth was taught. It was taught to them by a parent or someone close, right? And they take that on, and it's hard to get them to unlearn that. You don't think you're a piece of crap and a horrible person or whatever else. Somebody taught you that. And unfortunately took it on, and that in a way that's kind of piss you off, right? Like It's unfortunate, but it's one thing I try to really relay into parents as well. It's like you got to watch how you're talking about yourself in front of your children. Like even if they weren't doing it intentionally, I hear all the time, yeah, I saw my mom or my dad always picking themselves apart and tearing themselves down and calling themselves fat and always going on a diet and I just took it on, right? It's like you got to lead by example and know that your kids are watching you.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in like a house where like orange juice, we didn't buy orange juice because it was fattening. And there were always Slim Fast cans in the garage refrigerator and like things like that. And I mean, you look back, and especially now having worked with, you know, so many women in, you know, between my age and like my mom's age. And so seeing kind of like that spectrum. And I talk about it as like the Slim Fast generation, where it was like
Yeah.
a big push where they'd have it on the can, you know, like all you need are 3 cans of Slim Fast. You can have like an apple and I guess a hard boiled egg if you feel like it. And like that's all you were supposed to live off of. And then it became, I don't know if you've seen like those crazy reels where they put together all of the stuff from like the 90s and the 2000s where they're interviewing like famous women and stuff like that. And they're like, the one guy pulls out a scale like to weigh people as they show up to be on there. And it just felt like it was everything.
Yeah.
And of course, I only know from like the female perspective, like on our side, where it was just, you know, like be as small as possible. And then if you weren't,
Right.
or like I had someone recently, it was the first time I had heard it in like a while, where they were like, how much weight do you think I'd have to lose to get a thigh gap? And I was like, whoa, are those back? Like, are we
Yeah.
working for thigh gaps again? Like, and it's been really nice to see, like right now, I'm super excited to see things where, and maybe I just look for it, it becomes more like performance based. And I think, I mean, I've been pretty open about like personally, I don't know if I'll ever compete again or something. I don't really have like the interest in the bodybuilding side of things. I love helping my clients do it. Like for me, it doesn't get me excited. And it's something that like I know I tend to then compare a lot. It's the nature of it. You're going to stand up there and get compared. And for me, it hasn't been the best thing like for me to try and jump into. But what has been huge for me and like what's kind of working out lately is I'm seeing more of the like aesthetic results of it is like diving very deeply into a performance-based thing that is just thoroughly kicking my ass. Like I'm not very good at it. It's so hard. It makes me cry. For whatever reason, I fucking love it. And like really just finding those things, because going back to where like our goal was to talk about self-worth today and our habits and like things like that, that having something where every workout I go into, for the most part, I'm overcoming either a fear of going into the mountains for longer by myself, or like the fact that the workout's going to be really hard or something. And then you finish and you just have that like, I'm the coolest fucking person ever. Do you know what I did today? Like, what'd
Yeah.
you do? Guess what I did? And you like start to like get that cool feeling back. And I think it's so much more meaningful when it comes to finding like the long lasting results, because people want it to be the Ozempic shots, or they want it to be whatever the latest like silver bullet is. And like I recently saw like the saddest post from somebody where they were talking about like they wanted to get off of their shots, and I'm all for them, like if they're working for people and that's what you need, but like they wanted to get off of it, and then their doctor was like, oh no, you should buckle in, like you'll be on this forever for the most part if you want your results. And they were like super disheartened by that. And what were you gonna say?
Which isn't that wild? Because we're putting people on this shot without like really long-term health implication data. So because it hasn't been out that long. It was initially made for diabetes and diabetics, and now we're putting people on for weight loss, which great. I don't have a problem with that. There are people who need the shot. There are lots of things about, you know, obesity that we do not understand completely. And for whatever reason, this is helping a lot of people that need it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that don't need it that are still getting it and creating demand issues, and that's a whole different thing. But when we're putting people that don't need it, because I think, and I'm kind of mirroring the same opinion because it's the one I share as from a different podcast I was listening to on the Ozempic shot. So when we put it in use with people who do not have that need for it, we don't understand and we don't have the knowledge base to say, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the benefit for you worth the possible risk that might be coming down the road for you? And so if somebody really needs it, and we're talking like we are in the obese categories, and it's going to get them out of it, and it's going to have benefits for metabolic health, reducing cardiovascular risk, all the other stuff, we'll say that probably really outweighs any potential risks that we would have with this. But for a lot of people who just like, oh, I just want to lose a little bit of weight, like we have no clue. And we won't for what, at least another 5 years, probably.
Well, and what worried me with what I had seen with like that post was that the way, and this is like one perspective, right? But like she was heartbroken because she couldn't afford to keep it going like forever. And she was excited to have lost the weight and to be in that body, and then had this like paralyzing fear of like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do now if I had to have that to get me to where I'm at now? And now you're telling me I need it forever. And then it goes back to that like helpless, what am I supposed to do? And like your self-worth goes down. Like nobody feels their best about themselves when they're feeling lost and confused, you know? And so that's where like things like that, if it just came, I wish they had to like that the people writing the prescriptions had to couple it with more, you know, so that it gave some tools to try and back away from that so that people don't feel chained to it. And I mean, of course, I just want everybody to lift weights.
Right. Well, I mean, that's part of the problem is, I mean, basically what it does is it zaps your appetite, right? So if you go on this shot and it zaps your appetite, but you don't plan on going on it long term, like, is this going to be a forever thing? What happens when you get off of it? And I've talked to people who've gotten off it, and not surprisingly, they're just ravenously hungry, right? They haven't made any lifestyle changes. The hunger is going to come back, not only A, because they're off the shot, but B, they've lost all this weight, right? So leptin's down, ghrelin's up, all their hormones have changed. They just haven't noticed it because they've been on the shot that's been keeping their appetite down. But now all those things are going to be going crazy when they get off of it, and they come back even hungrier than when they started the shot. So it's like, is this something you're going to do forever? Because if not, I mean, it's always between you and your physician and everything, right? But I just have a lot of concerns, like you say, for just the average person. For some cases, absolutely, it makes perfect sense, but it's not going to teach you how to live a lifestyle where you can maintain your results.
Yeah, I have a friend who's on it right now, and like a handful of years ago, she had been put on an anxiety medication, and that had led to like a significant weight gain. I want to say it was something like 40 to 50 pounds. When she got put on her medication, she had the weight come on, and she has like an active job and everything, and just hasn't had any success. And so their doctor had said, you know, like, you'd be a good candidate with this, and it's working. Like every time I see her, I'm like, oh my God, look at this go. But then I also like will show up like protein shakes and I'm like, what are you doing? And stuff, and trying to make sure that there's some sort of plan, because it's one of those things where if it, like you said, if it works, cool. I'm happy for everyone to do whatever. It stresses me out for the after part of it. And then Colin, what you were saying, that makes me wonder, are there no studies on the hormone, like even just the hormonal response in terms of literally just ghrelin and leptin with long-term?
Yeah, I haven't actually physically looked at anything. I'm speculating, just based off that's what happens with weight loss, right?
I'm
You lose body fat, those
Correct.
things are going to change, and you just don't really notice it when you're on the shot because it does zap your appetite so much. What I'm actually kind of curious now that I'm literally just thinking about this is like, is a part of why it zaps your appetite because it changes those hormones. I imagine that probably has something to do with it. I don't know.
It does a few things, but I think the biggest thing that it does is it slows motility. So it slows the speed at which food is moving through your digestive tract.
Okay.
But I mean, you are correct.
I'm going to fall down such a rabbit hole of this now.
Yeah. So
and it is
if you
interesting.
lose
Like, are
body
there
fat,
studies
it'll
on
have an
that?
impact.
Yeah. So like what happens to those hormones and stuff? Are there significant changes? I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. As far as I know, I haven't dug into it to even know, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say I think it's pretty fair to assume that the same physiological responses that we see, like we know that lower circulating leptin levels can have an impact on things like other hormones, specifically sex hormones, testosterone, that kind of stuff too. And that's in addition to how hungry you feel and your hunger signaling and stuff. So I think it would be fair to say without that intervention, that medical intervention, as soon as you come off of that, it would be like going back to normal, but depending on how much weight you lost, also any extra impact of the changes in terms of your body composition and how that underlying hormone health or physiological health state is
which
going
you
to be.
hadn't felt at all while losing body fat either, right? Like you didn't feel any of that stuff, and then it's probably like a double whammy when you come off of it. I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you are going on the GLP-1 shots for weight loss, the plan is that you will be on them forever. That is the current plan. Being it, I don't know how else to say it other than that.
That makes me sad. I don't know that much about them because I don't have them in my life, right? So like I know like enough to like have a basic understanding. I've probably foolishly hoped that they were kind of like a long short-term solution, maybe, where it was like something maybe like a longer bridge depending on the journey. But I mean, it makes sense that they're working with something where what freaks me out is that it works down to 6, right? And so like the idea of putting like a heavy 6-year-old on it and then saying like, this is your life now for the next, 90 years, have fun with your shots.
Ugh,
Um,
yeah.
would just be bonkers. But I mean, that just shows we went on this whole side trip. And so that's why we have to, getting back to the self-worth thing. And I mean, I'm sure you guys have similar conversations with parents if you've had it brought up where like I'll have moms get concerned like, okay, well, what if my daughter sees me weighing my food and now she's going to think I like have an eating disorder, or if I look like I'm crazy because I'm doing all of this stuff. And I mean, a lot of times it'll be somebody where I want to be like, but are they also hearing you say that you need to lose weight? Like, so it's like we're already creating those situations, not that we want to exchange one for one. But a big thing for me is like reframing in general, top to bottom, even when I'm going into fat loss phases with clients lately, like I do more of a deep dive of like, why, what are we looking to accomplish? How great are you going to feel at the end? Why do you think you're going to feel that great? And stuff like that. And then getting to where like the way that we're thinking about it is just a bit more positive. Like it's not, I have to do this. I had somebody who did a consult for a while and they were so convinced that if they just lost 15 pounds, they were going to be a better lawyer. And I was just like, why? Like, what does that have to do with it? And whatever it is, I have to do it as fast as possible within the next 2 months. I need to have the weight down, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I think that if we pursued that, you'd probably be a very shitty lawyer between now and then. And
He's probably going back to feeling like he's going to feel more confident, is the only thing I can really think of. Right.
Which 100%, yeah, that can be a part of it. But I mean, you have to take like the juice and the squeeze.
Yeah. Well, and most of the time, I don't personally think you really build confidence just from losing weight.
Right.
It's a factor, but it's not usually the physical result that builds your confidence. It's that you went through the difficult thing, right? Like you took on the challenge, you persevered some difficult times, you kept the promise to yourself. Like that's what builds confidence, keeping promises to yourself, not, oh, I got X result. If it just came and you didn't do anything to earn it, you're not going to value it, right? You value it by going through the process and doing the challenging things. And that gives you confidence that you can do things like difficult cases as a lawyer, right? Like it kind of circles back to what I kind of talked about earlier, which I wanted to expand on a little bit more if I can. And that is what happens in the gym. And I have a saying, I like to say, if you don't let the weights beat you, you won't let life beat you. And what I mean by that is when you go into the gym, especially if you just first start out, like you're going to be weak. Everything's going to be hard. It's going to be uncoordinated. And, you know, at first you can barely lift the bar and it feels like it's impossible, but your body will have no choice but to get stronger if you keep showing up. And over time you find, hey, I can do things that I didn't think I could do. I can accomplish things that I didn't think was possible, right? Like when I was a power lifter, the heaviest squat and deadlift I did was a little over 500 pounds. Well, when I first started lifting, 200 pounds was impossible, right? And one of the things that I really, truly, as corny as it may sound, I really think helped my confidence more than anything was having struggles when I was a power lifter to get stronger with my deadlift. I spent a year and a half trying to hit 515 pounds. It just failed over and over. I could not get that number for whatever reason. I couldn't do it. And I hired coaches and did all the programming, did everything I was supposed to do. And I could not get better at that lift. But I'm telling you, when I finally hit that lift after a year and a half of failing over and over again, I put that in one of my, like, probably top 5 most proud achievements that I've had, just because it was so hard and it took so long and I didn't give up on myself when it didn't feel like I could do it. And it could be so easy to go, oh, it's just lifting weights, bro. It's not that big of a deal. Like, no, it's not. It's not. It's teaching you. It's teaching you that you can do hard things. It's teaching you that you can accomplish things you didn't think were possible. And tie it all back to self-worth. Well, how can you ever believe in yourself if you don't do hard things? How can you believe in yourself if you don't attempt to do things that you don't know you can do, right? And when you show up to the gym and things aren't going well and it feels like you're not going to be able to accomplish your goals, whether that be lifting or running, time-based, whatever it might be, if you keep showing up and keep doing it, you're eventually going to hit it. And that carries over into, I don't care what anybody says, that carries over into everything in your life. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't, obviously I became a coach because I became very passionate about this lifestyle, which is why I did it. But if it wasn't for the changes mentally that happened to me in the first, what would that have been, 7 years of my, fitness career, I really, truly don't think I ever would have had the courage to take my family and say, we're going to sell our house for a huge loss. And we're going to move in with my parents for 9 months so we can pay back the money we had to borrow to show up, and to move all the way across the country and start completely over and start a business from scratch, having no clue what I'm going to do. Like, the reason I was able to do that stuff is because of the self-worth I created by going to the gym and changing my body in the long run, not by rushing the process, not by trying to get the magical quick fix that's not going to do anything for you. That's what changes you. It's what happens on the inside that really changes you, not the physical change that you make. That's part of the process, but you don't get that without going through all those difficulties. And it's like, it is cliche as it sounds, it really is the means to the end that changes you, not the end itself, not the end goal, which, as we all know as coaches, is there is no end.
Yeah, but what if I have acid reflux on the inside?
Well, hopefully that's better now.
Yeah. I love that. But I tell my clients something similar, especially if they're going through a hard time. I bet go to the gym and it's the weight's fault. And you take it out on them and you beat the shit out of them. And if that's just like your hardest part of your day, everything else seems easier. And I think there's also something about the fact, like, when you go and kick your own ass and like you hold yourself to it and make it so like that was the hardest part. And then it does just bleed over to feeling like that stuff does translate into more confidence in other spaces everywhere, which is totally valid.
Totally.
I think that what we see a lot is that people think, like, I've seen the question recently, like, if I want to lose weight and like I have a lot of weight to lose, should I lose that first or should I start strength training first? Like, do I just need to go on an aggressive diet? And I'm very curious to see what Steven has to say about this. What?
I mean, I honestly, before we even get into that, I think something, because we kind of skipped this idea that I have in here, and because the way I grew up, adults didn't worry about themselves, they worried about everybody else. And I think that this is a pivotal part of self-worth that really keeps a lot of people from starting. It keeps a lot of people from even getting going in the first place, because we have so many other things going on in life. We got to work, we got the kids, we got the animals, we got this, we got that. And we have all these things. And so we're trying to take care of everybody else. And we only have this external kind of viewpoint of, all right, all these people are important to me, all these things are worth it. But we forget that we have that worth too. And so we actually forego recognizing our own worth in terms of like that self-care. And so maybe whatever, it's the gym, maybe it's going for a bike ride, maybe it's getting some sunlight. And I think that that's one of those areas of self-worth that's not talked about very often, and it's not addressed very often. But the fact that you are worth taking care of you.
Yeah.
And that's also a part of taking care of other people, because you're just not gonna, you're not going to be at your best if you're constantly on empty. And so I know we talk about that in other ways and still kind of tend to that idea. But if you don't see yourself as worth that, then you're going to continue to give your time, your effort, and all of your bandwidth to those external things that, maybe you don't have too much of a choice, right? Your family, financial responsibilities, but you're taking away from your ability to improve, from your ability to have better energy, from your ability to have better health, for your ability to have better concentration, and like all the other things that come along with that, regardless of the physique even, or independent of it.
That goes back to like, you can't pour from an empty cup and things like that, which, I will say that to people and I hate when it gets said to me. Because I mean, usually if it's being said, I'm like beyond empty. The bottom of the cup is gone. You can't fill it back up. Like, we need a new cup. And it's so true, because that energy too bleeds over into everything else. Right. And if you are walking around the whole time with well, there's no point in me even doing that for myself because of this or that, or like, that's not as important, it all ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and I mean, on a similar note, I mean, yes, I've always agreed with the you can't, pour from an empty cup, and a lot of people like to make the analogy of, like an airplane, right? You got to use your oxygen mask first because you're worthless to your kid if you pass out or whatever. But even on a deeper level, maybe not deeper, but on a different level, the way I like to look at that is, as a parent, and it's usually parents who are having these conversations because they have that extra responsibility, right? As a parent, do you want your child to grow up to put every single other person in front of themselves? Do you want them to run themselves into the ground and not take care of themselves? Because if you don't, but you're showing them that that's what you do, that's what they're picking up and learning, and they're going to bring that into their life as they get older. So it's something you got to consider. It's coming from a selfless thought process, most likely. And it's because you care, and that's great. But you got to show them that that's not how it's done,
Yeah.
Way to kick them right in the solar plex, man, just right in the gut.
I mean it with nothing but love. I really do. I mean, it's something that I don't think a lot of people think about, right? Like, they don't think that, oh, my kids are watching me and they're learning what I do. Kids learn, in my opinion, obviously I'm no child psychologist or anything, but they learn from your actions much more than what you tell them, right? And if they see you, like we said earlier, if they see you picking yourself apart and running yourself into the ground and putting everyone else first, like, they're going to pick up on that.
Right.
And I don't think any parent really wants their child to grow up to do that to themselves. So you got to understand, you do it, you got to put yourself first, as difficult as that can be. You can't be always, but as much as you can, because yes, you are worthless to other people if you are just a complete ball of stress mess and just run to the ground. But you got to lead by example. And I think of, one of the things, I can't remember what you said, Stephen, but I jotted down a note, so I just want to say it while it's on my mind. It was something with regards to, happiness and losing body fat or something like that.
Oh, it might be when I had brought up people asking about if they should do one or the other.
I'm not sure, but the note that I wrote down was that you deserve to be happy regardless of your size, right? And I think, a lot
Fuck
of times people
yes.
get a lot of people get caught up in like, well, I'll be happy if I lose X amount of weight, right?
Right.
Or whatever else. But it's like, no. Like I am all for changing your body for all the reasons I just talked about. I think it's one of the best things you can possibly do for yourself is to try to change your body, but not because you hate yourself or that you're disgusting or that like you don't get to be happy just because you're heavier than you want to be. You deserve to be happy. I don't care how much you weigh or how big you are. You deserve to be happy. And that's going to take, if you really truly believe that and take that in, that's going to take away some of that, I'll only have self-worth if I get in better shape and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely go for those things. You got it's important for your health. If no other reason, you should try to be a healthy person, right? But it's very unfulfilling if you do it for the only reason that you think you're going to be happy once you get to a certain result, because it doesn't usually work that way.
Yeah.
In fact, oftentimes I find it actually makes people have even worse body images because once they get down, they're so petrified to gaining weight from there, it just rules their whole life.
Or they find something new to
if
work
you're not careful, yeah.
I was just talking to Daraja yesterday. We recorded a podcast about like second trimester fitness and stuff. And her pregnancy, I think in terms of like activity wise, like she had said, it just has gone different than she had thought that it would go for her with how comfortable she is in the gym and stuff. And so she's had to give herself a lot of grace with like rolling with what makes sense right now, doing the things that work. And what I loved about it, because all three of us have gotten had the clients and the questions and stuff where it's like, how do you have the belly only pregnancy? How do you do as little as possible? Or like, aren't you so afraid everything will go wrong after? And so I had to ask her, like, how do you deal with those? And I loved it. She's like, I have a lot of things that I could probably use to be negative about right now and be uncomfortable with. And that's the easy way. But like, I'm only going to do this for so long. And so why not just be happy about it and look for the happy parts of it? And I mean, if we could all just do that, like how magical would that be? But she lives it. And I feel like that's why like Daraja like radiates like that kind of stuff where I'm like, that's just what she gives off because she lives that. And it's like there's always going to be something, no matter where you're at, like what phase it is. And I mean, we've all seen this with people either in fat loss phases or in a reverse diet. You're at you're in the dirty parts of your fat loss phase. You're like, oh my God, I can't wait for the reverse diet when I'm eating all that food. Things can be great. And then you get them into the reverse diet and it's like, but when do I get to diet again?
Yeah. Grass is
When
greener
are we gonna
mentality, I call it. Yeah.
Right. And so there's always like but it could be cooler. And I mean, so I'm somebody who can easily go down like the list of all of the things I can be anxious about and like stuff like that. And so thankfully I'm paired up with my husband who has like the Daraja mindset and he's there to balance me. But it's one of those things where like just looking around, he swears he can like solve the world with a positive mental attitude. And I tell you what, he looks for the solutions. And yeah, when you're not freaking out about it, it's a lot easier to be like, well, we could try this and like figure out the way forward. And I think it goes along with the self-worth part and the like how not even like self-worth, but almost like how you identify yourself or something like that, where like, yeah, I am a person who probably just routinely comes off like there's chaos everywhere. And that's because
Yes.
I'm just a walking ball of chaos. Like that's me. It's not even having 4 kids and stuff like that. That's how I respond to it, is that I'm just a walking ball of chaos. And if I want that to be different, it's only on me. And that can be really hard. And like my husband will like have to be like, Chirstina, you're being crazy right now. And luckily for me, running and activity and stuff can be a really good reset button. And so if I haven't gotten that in yet, he can be like, get out of the house, go run. And like, what? Because I know, Stephen, you don't love it as like a therapy, right? And so not going.
No. So I don't love it as a replacement for actual therapy.
Right.
That's what I don't love. Like the gym is my therapy. No, therapy is therapy. the gym, the activity can make you feel better. It does that. That's great. But like what I'm thinking, hearing this is, it's the difference between living proactively. I'm looking at the things I can do. I'm looking at the decisions I can make. I'm looking at the things that I have control over to influence to make life as good as I can or to get closer to the goal post versus reactivity where, oh man, I'm not feeling good today. Everything sucks. My life is chaos. Oh God, one of your kids' names is Ben, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, Ben pooped the car. It's everywhere. It smells so bad. Like this is the entire day is away. You know what I mean? Like, or oh man, I have to get a surgery because it's gonna think, okay, cool. Well, what can I do proactively in this downtime where I can still make progress on other goals? Or oh man, maybe I can get, pick the guitar back up and really refresh on that. And it's in that proactive mindset, which I do think that when you start getting in the gym, I think that's one of the things that the lifestyle of activity helps to give you because you're now looking forward to, okay, what am I going to do today? Or what's my exercise? Or when am I going to make that work? And you're planning proactively to have control over your situation in your life.
Yeah.
And that was really the big thing that I think with that kind of point that you were making with Deraja and the attitude, like, I think it makes all the difference because also if you don't have that worth, if you don't have that self-confidence, it's hard to believe that you have the ability to make those positive changes.
Yes.
And dictations.
Yeah. And so that's where I was kind of going with that, where it's very easy for me to get to where like everything is shit and it's just shit. And like, not like that I'll freeze up and not work through it, but like at least have some time where it's like, but no, it's just everything's ruined, and like feel that way. And then you don't know what to go, like where to go from there. And it's a skill that comes over time, just like everything else, to get better, where like I have to tell myself, like, no, if it seems like everything's gone wrong, like take a breath and figure out what is just the first simple next step in what we do here to fix this. And then we move on to the next one. Right. And because like Colin said, the last thing I need, I've got 2 girls in the house. I don't need them to be crazy like me. But
I
like
got bad news.
I know. So our oldest though, Riker, our son, he's a carbon copy of me. And like now that he's in middle school, I can watch his brain start to do things. And I'm like, oh, Betty.
You're like, I know exactly what he's thinking right now.
Yeah. Where like my husband will get on him about something. And I'm like, wait, nothing you're saying right now. It's not even getting in the ear to go out the other. Just hold on. Let me talk to him. And that's something that I think for me, that's why I like to take on like new, harder things, because I found out that big, like internal joy that comes from conquering something you didn't think you could do. I mean, deadlifting. Oh my God. I only gave 1 year of it, but I just wanted to be able to pick up my husband. And he was weighing 265 and I wanted to deadlift 265. And I got to like 260 and just could not get past it. Like where 260 can get picked up and 265, I feel like my whole body breaks as soon as I pull and it doesn't even. And, you could just be like, screw it. I'm just never going to deadlift again. And I'm not going to do that. But I wish more people got that like dog with a bone mentality, like get pissed off at it and tackle that, because then there becomes other stuff that you can go tackle knowing like, okay, well, I've unracked a bar, like me at 140, unracking a bar with 205 on my back. That's scary for a couple of seconds. And if you can get past that kind of stuff, you build that trust. But it really does take, like how they say fail is like that first attempt in learning. You have to keep going and you have to keep fucking it up and trust in yourself to just try to mess it up differently next time.
Yeah. I heard once, failure is an event, not a person. And I always like that. Failure is key to growth, right? Like everyone thinks it's just like, oh, you just try and you succeed. No, it's like fail over and over and over again. And then you finally get better. But what you said about, okay, the easy thing would be to quit. Yeah. But the problem is, man, the more times you quit when something gets hard, the more, back to your earlier point, the more you just identify as that's what I do, right? Like, well, I just quit. And it just gets easier and easier and easier to quit every single time because, this is just what I do, right? You got to rewire that and say, no, this is not what I do. and work through those hard things, because like we've talked about, I mean, I'm telling you, the only way you get stronger is by going through the struggle. That's where the growth is. And in an almost weird twisted way, sometimes right now, sometimes more than others, sometimes less than others, but sometimes it's like when things get really bad and I'm really struggling with something, I almost get excited because I'm like, okay, something good is on the other side of this, right? Like if I just keep going through it and keep tackling these hard challenges and stick with my plan, even though the easy thing is to say I need to take stuff off my plate because it's too much, never even does any good anyways. But at least this way, it's like, okay, if I keep going to the gym and I focus on what I have control over, it gives me some sense of control. It helps build some wins and momentum. And man, you get through that difficult thing, and it eventually it'll go away at some point. But when you go through that and get to the other side, having stuck to what you said you were going to do, that's one of the best feelings in the world. It builds so much pride and confidence. But if you never go through that, you don't understand that, and it just turns into, well, it's hard, and I give up. And I'm telling you, you guys would probably agree with me, the hardest thing for me as a coach is watching people with so much potential give up on themselves. It's still to this day, 10 years into this process, it just eats me up. I have such a hard time with it because, like, man, like you were right there, everything was going so well, and something came up and they got down, and I try to talk them out of it and I can't. It kills me. And it's like, you give up, and for what? For what?
I think
It's hard.
I
Go
think
ahead,
some of
Steven.
it's trust too, right? Because like when you prove to yourself that you can continue to do these things, you are building trust in yourself that you will follow, that you have that follow through, that you can continue to do these things. You trust yourself to make it through those hard situations. And if I don't think quitting is always a bad thing. There are most certainly lots
Right.
and so unfortunately that the idea of quitting is like mixed in with the idea of failing, and they're very different things.
Yes.
But I think when we don't follow through with the things that we say to ourselves, and this is where like that worth and that value, how it affects your values, I think comes in for me. Because if you see yourself as worthwhile, then you see yourself as somebody that is very important for you to keep your word to. It's very important for you to keep your promises to yourself. So when you say, hey, this is important, I want to do this for me, and I need to promise this for myself. I mean, like, there's people where if I tell you I'm going to do something, whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to do it. But oftentimes we don't get that with ourselves. And I think it's because when we have those times where, all right, things get a little rough and we step back and we step back and we step back, we're not establishing that trust that we can handle that. And we're not establishing that trust that we are going to follow through for us. And like, that's a really hard dilemma, I think, for a lot of people to work through.
So, but that's where, like, trying to say, like, okay, so what can we do, right? In that situation, I think that's where keeping things super reasonable is like the smartest thing, right? And trying to help people, which, and I'm sure we sound like a broken record because we talk about it all the time, that like don't go from not doing anything to doing all of the things, because we should probably take a like zero entry pool kind of idea. But it's really, it brings you like the wins, the daily wins, like set it up so that in the beginning, it's something where, even like maybe I'm just the only crazy person who I'll write something down on my to-do list just so I can cross it off. And sometimes you just need that. You need to build on those things. And that's where, like, I was talking to a new client this morning. If all you've got time for is adding in, like, we're looking to get to 6,000 steps. And she's like, but 10,000 is supposed to be what works, right? And I was like, babe, you're walking 5. Let's do 6. That's a 20% increase. Like, and if that is what keeps her like continuing to move on with things, my intention is 100% to get her to a place where she is very excited about the things that she can squat and shoulder press and like do all of those different things. But if I talk to somebody who hasn't done that in 15 years and they're already nervous to do that on their own, and I'm like, okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is build a shit ton of muscle. You're going to get real strong. That can be really intimidating and harder to, stick to, find that, yes, I'm the person. I mean, I did that with this like run cycle and changing things where I'd be out there in the middle stuff and be like, why did I think I was the person who could go and do these things? And you have those moments, but then when you show up and you keep doing it, even if it's messy, what is it? Oh, who says that? What was it, like messy progress or something? There is somebody that we have podcasted with that has said something like that, where even just like messy progress is better than no progress. And as long as we're putting efforts toward it and we're working in that direction, that's fantastic. It's so much better than just not doing anything. And then it works out that things like walking, if you're, Stephen, did you tell me this last week or like recently, where it's like up to 7,500 steps or something for every 1,000 that you add? It's like huge.
Like
In
10% in all cause mortality.
yes.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then once you hit 7,500, it doesn't make as like much of a change like from there.
Right. But it still went up until like 15,000 or something like that, if I
Yeah.
remember right.
Yep.
But just the
in
idea.
general, the more active you are, the better of an impact that it's going to have in terms of lowering your all-cause mortality risk.
Yeah. And like, how reassuring is that, that if you're someone who, like, for her job allows for her to get to 4,500 to 5,000 a day. And it's like, well, you don't have to try and double that. We can make a huge shift in your life by just, kind of slow rolling things. And I think that's what really helps, is making things digestible. And then, but you have to keep pushing. And like, that's where I think over time, like, I really had to grow as a coach, was getting more comfortable with continuing to shove people kind of like out of those comfort zones and wanting to be like, well, now it's different. You have to work harder. And yeah, but when you see that light bulb go off and you have them, cross the finish lines, or they get off stage, or they do their first powerlifting meet, like whatever it is, it's like having kids and you see them like ride their bike for the first time or something like that. And it's so exciting. And so I think it's nice to always kind of have that there, where like the easier things that people can take on for when like maybe life just doesn't support full focus on that right now.
Yeah, no all or nothing mentality, right? Like, I don't know who said the quote, the messy progress. I liked it, but it reminded me of a Les Brown quote. I'm pretty sure it was Les Brown. He said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly, right? Like, if you start, you're probably going to suck. Like, we all suck at things. We if you've never tracked a day in your life, or if you've never played a guitar in your whole life, like, you start doing these things and it's tedious and it's hard and you suck, but you keep doing it, you get better at it, right? And if you want to do that thing to get that result, to be great, well, you got to do it poorly at first and not judge yourself for it. I mean, that's what just kills so many people, right? The over judgment of yourself. And I honestly think that's what people are afraid of so much. It's not necessarily, okay, like fear of failure because you're afraid that, what other people are think. I mean, obviously that's some of it, but I think most people are afraid of themselves because they know how they're going to treat themselves, right? Like, if I do well, I'm going to beat myself up. And man, you got to start talking to yourself the way you would talk to a friend, right? Like, if they came with the same situation, what would you say to them, right? And start talking to yourself that way, because it's so hard to make the big changes you want if you're just constantly telling yourself you're worthless and things like that. Comes back to the main topic, right? The self-worth.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it just starts like, you have to believe you can do it. That's another Les Brown quote. It's you don't have to believe you can do it right now, but you have to believe that it's possible. Because if you don't believe it's possible, you're never going to take the necessary action to get there. You might half-ass it for a while and kind of, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but never really give it a go and say, see, it didn't work. But you're never going to give it your all if you don't really believe it's even possible. Which comes back to, okay, like, how do you start believing that you can? Like, how do you do that? And I think it really just starts with, you keep the promises you make to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the big first step.
Yeah. That trust, you trust, and it has a worth in it. Like, and because I'm a little bit different than Christina, I can't go into a workout and be pissed off all the time. Like, I've been pissed off enough in life. Like, I want to try and not have that anymore.
I don't go into all of my workouts pissed off.
But like, I'm not going to go up and get pissed off and be like, I'm going to lift this. For me, like, my mindset is, it's like Grand Canyon mindset, right? A drip, a drip, a drip. I'm just going to kick the can down the road a little bit more.
Yeah.
And kick the
Keep
can down
showing
the
up for
road a little bit
yourself.
more.
Yeah.
And a little bit more. And slowly and surely, I'm going to just polish this turd of my life until it's starting to look real pretty. And don't say you can't polish a turd, because Mythbusters did it. Right.
Was it like
So,
a
like,
dried one?
yeah, I think it was. But like, my point is with this, like, even if you don't have the highest opinion of yourself and you don't have the most worth, like, I don't think I'm worth like so much by any means, but I do think I'm worth the same as anybody else. And if I think anybody else is worth this stuff, then I'm certainly worth it too, if that's my belief system. And so when I kind of encounter that, it's just like, I don't have to be there today. Like, who knows if I'll even get there or not. But if that's where I want to go, I'm going to just try and make a little bit of progress and make a little bit of progress, because over time, those small things create, small movements in water over thousands and thousands of years creates the Grand Canyon. I mean, it erodes away, and it makes a little bit of a difference, and a little bit of a difference. And changing the way that we talk to ourselves, we just do a little bit here and a little bit here, and we're mindful of it, and we continue to do it, and we just keep kicking the can and keep kicking the can. Next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, I amp myself up. Oh my gosh, like, I tell myself I'm strong. I tell myself I'm good looking. I mean, I don't, but like, you know what I mean? I tell myself these things that, instead of pushing me back down, like, build me up and bring me closer to this place that I say I want to be. And like, just keep chipping away.
Yeah. And it's not going to happen all at once, right? Like, I think we tend to, as humans, we feel like, okay, I have something about myself that I don't like, I'm gonna make a change, and you just feel like you should just flip a switch and then it's just all fixed, right? And then anytime you have any type of setback and go back into old habits, you feel like you're a failure and you just, go back to just giving up. It's like, no, you're probably gonna struggle with a lot of this stuff for a long time, but it's going to become less frequent. It's going to become less severe. You're going to make improvements, right? And that's progress going in the right direction. You shouldn't expect to just completely do a 180. It's that all or nothing mentality again.
I think that's one thing our parents did have, right? I think that's at this day and age problem. Like, back, I know when I was a kid, I'm sure when you were a kid too, like, you never expected anything to be instant. You knew
Yes.
that you would start something, you would have to work for it for a while, and then that carrot would appear on the stick. Then that, person would bust out of the cake. But with how life is now, I can Amazon something and have it overnighted. I can have same day delivery. And with social media and everything, this instant gratification at this point in time is, I think, the absolute worst it's ever been for society. And I do think that also creates a lot of issues there for people in terms of that timeline, their expectations for themselves, because it is super unrealistic.
Yeah, we expect everything to be easy, and it's just, anything worth having is not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. And yeah, you said Amazon, because I was going to say, yeah, I call it the Amazon lifestyle, right? Like, it's just, everything's super convenient now. You basically don't even have to leave your house anymore if you don't want to. And there's a lot of convenience, which has a lot of positives, but it has some pretty harsh negatives too, if you take that on and expect your whole life to be that way. And it can't be. It can't. We got to take away the timelines and the rush and stuff.
It made me think about what you said earlier about, like, if you worked for it, you value it more. And I think, like, that kind of goes, like, that mentality of where, like, things should be fast. Well, but I saw on the internet that you can do it this quick. So, like, what if I did? And, like, it really, like, we're not lying. If we knew how to make it last and be as fulfilling and make it, like, do it faster, we'd be trying to do it. But it really is just the consistent effort and showing up to get through the times that you're tested, because one way or another, like, life is going to test you. It's going to consistently happen. So you can either sit back and take it and just be like, fine, this is hard, or, like, you can make yourself, like, stronger. Like, I love to think of, like, super ridiculous things. Like, I'm pretty confident that if there was a zombie apocalypse and I had to run from my house to the hospital in Denver, I could go get medicine and make it back home, and the slow ass zombies aren't going to catch up to me. If they're 28 days later zombies, I have a different problem. But I like to think of it like when I'm squatting, how much does like somebody I know, like they probably weigh that much. And so I could throw them on my back and probably pick them up. Like I like to think about
everyone has to be able to do one pull-up in case you're hanging off of a cliff one day and you need to get
see
yourself up,
what
right?
happens. So this is where I have reframed my ridiculous anxiety and like intrusive thoughts. And I'm like, well, fine. I'll just train myself so that I'm the kind of person where like, yeah, in that moment with enough adrenaline, I could probably figure the fuck out. And for me, that keeps me excited about just the lifestyle of fitness. Like, okay, this is like 37-year-old Chirstina. I want to make sure she can do a cool shit compared to 36-year-old Chirstina. And like, just keep, like you said, kicking that can. Because the other option is just to sit down and be like, well, I'm old now, so the magazines say I've expired. Like, that would suck. And so why not just get excited about you? Like, honestly, I feel like we need a decent dose of shame in this world and a decent dose of ego. We just have to make sure they're the right doses to like get us in a good spot.
Yeah, I don't know. Eeyore was always my favorite, so I always kind of liked that
What was
that
all
vibe.
favorite?
Eeyore.
Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah, he was the best.
Was my favorite.
But it's funny because it made me think of something they used to tell us. So for those of you who don't know, you might be surprised. I used to go to church a lot. And when I would go to church, especially in youth group as a kid, they were always like, it's worth the wait. You know, they're worth the wait. And I don't know that I agree with that, but I will say this. You should work on agreeing that you're worth the wait.
Absolutely.
I dadded it up. Let's go.
Love it.
Yeah, let's go. You're ready.
Yay. Colin, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
I mean, yeah. One of the things we were just talking about was kind of like expectations and, you know, wanting things to be easy all the time, which actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting things to be easy. That's just natural. The danger is in expecting it to be easy, right? Like, especially if it can't be. And I heard, I don't know who the lady was, and I wish I could give credit, but she was talking about how look at life as like, she called it the rule of thirds. A third of your life is going to be really good. A third of your life is going to be okay. And a third of your life is going to suck, right? And if you view it from that standpoint, understanding that, you know, a third of your life or however much, don't get caught up in exact numbers, but, you know, a good portion of your life is going to be really tough, right? It's just going to happen. It's natural. There's no way to escape that. So much of why we struggle is because we feel like we should feel good all the time. I think this is a big reason, and I'm not a therapist or whatever. If you struggle with binge eating and emotional eating stuff, you should see somebody. But I personally think a big reason why a lot of people do struggle with emotional eating is because they feel like they should always feel good all the time, right? And as soon as something bad happens, they feel like, crap, I don't like the way I'm feeling. I have to do something to make myself feel better now because something's wrong. And they turn to food, right? And, you know, kind of piggybacking off of what you guys were talking about with, okay, one of you likes to just go crush in the gym, the other one not so much. I hear all the time, I need better coping mechanisms, right? Like I need to find something else. I should use the gym for a coping mechanism. Well, that can be taken to a negative extreme as well, right? Like if you're going and you're running for 4 hours every day because you can't cope with life's difficulties, that's not better. It still has a lot of potential problems. A thing that can really, I think, help a lot of people is just accepting that sometimes I'm not going to feel good. Sometimes things are going to be bad. And I don't have to do anything to make myself feel better, you know, and that can be such a powerful thing to take on, and it'll stop you from getting so down all the time. I like to say, thrive during the good times, just survive the bad times, you know. So that was my closing and what I wanted to talk about. I've got like a million notes I could talk about, but we'd be here for 10 hours. So
we'll just have to plan another one then.
Yeah, I'm down.
That's all the listeners. You will listen to us forever.
I'm gonna take over the podcast. The Colin DeWaay takeover.
There we go. I like it. Well, I have so much I want to add on to that too, but I'm like, then we'll be here for another hour. And so we'll just have to figure it out. That way we can have an extended conversation because we'll
do a part 2.
Yes. So yeah, in summary, We think you guys are cool, and you should think you're cool. And thanks for hanging out with us. Steven,
And
you
even
Thanks
if
for
we
having me,
don't
guys.
think you're cool, you should think you're cool.
Yes.
Wait, say that again.
I said, even if we don't think you're cool, you should still think that you're cool.
You should still think you're cool. If you don't think you're cool, who will? I just, if you're not going to clap for yourself, why should anybody else? You know? So
Yeah.
we gotta get some more celebrations up in this house. So, all right, guys. Well, Colin, thank you so much for making time with us.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we were so glad to have you. So,
Especially since I texted you like an hour ago.
oh, literally.
Thankfully, you caught me on an off day on the gym. Otherwise, I normally would have been in the gym at that time. So it worked out really well.
He was like, yeah, what if you join today? I was like, okay.
You're
Yeah,
like,
you do
okay.
that. Like, that sounds great. Yay. Okay. Well, thank you, listeners. We will talk to you guys next week.